Usually when people get comfortable, it's when the true character comes out. And sometimes when it comes out, it's ugh. Friends and family, welcome to another episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Married Woman. In this episode, we're going to talk about, is it possible to be married happily ever after? So grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's do this. So I saw a quote that said, a perfect marriage is just two imperfect people refusing to give up on each other. And I believe that. I don't know what you think, but I truly believe that because none of us is perfect, but usually we're looking for somebody as close to perfect as possible. I think being married forever, for the rest of your life is that is possible, but happily married all the way through. Life has ups and downs, and so it is important to understand that if you decide to be committed, you have to be committed even through the ups and downs. When we're talking about the happily ever after, number one, it won't be happily forever. It just can't because life throws curveballs at you. Different things happen. You will have different opinions and you will have arguments, and each of you will definitely think they're right. And sometimes you can both be right, but you have to make a decision in how to move forward. So definitely happily ever after, I think is a fairy tale. It's not realistic. From my perspective, if you have experienced something different or you've seen something different, let me know. But I don't know, and I've said this before in a previous marriage, I don't know any marriage that has been smooth and easy sailing all the way through. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, if you want happily ever after, your partner has to want happily ever after, and you both have to work towards happily ever after. So that is slightly different from the commitment phase, because you're committed in your mind and your heart, you're committed. But then there's an action that follows when you're committed, okay? Because some people are committed to stay in the marriage no matter what. They can be very unhappy, but from their perspective, divorce is not an option. From their perspective, their family doesn't have divorce anywhere in the history. So you may be going through physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, but you've committed in your mind that you're not getting a divorce. That is completely different from what I'm talking about. As I say at the end of every video, you have to respect yourself and your spouse, and you have to be kind to yourself and your spouse. Remember, I say yourself first, and then I say your spouse, okay? Because if you don't love and respect yourself, you can't love and respect somebody else. That is, to me, that is common sense. May not be that for other people. So when I'm talking about you making up your mind that you're in it forever, it is you're in it as in you're working together, to make it work forever. It's not going to be one person is doing all the work and the other one is just chilling. And when I say all the work, I'm talking about keeping the spice in the marriage, keeping the marriage interesting, and keeping yourself engaged in the activities that you both partake of to make the marriage thrive. It can't be a one-sided thing. It has to be both. So if you're both committed to happily ever after, then you both have to be actively committed in making sure that your marriage is the best way it could be. One of the things that you can do is it's sort of like a check-in, maybe every year you guys kind of have a real candid conversation. What do you think about our marriage now? Do you like it? What do you think is going well? What do you think is not going well? What do we need to fix? What do we need to change? What do we need to work on? I think that is a very important thing. It doesn't have to be a formal, let's sit down, let's take a pen and pen and paper and let's write this stuff down. It doesn't have to be like that, but they have to be from time to time. Those conversations, they're uncomfortable, and it's not always that both of you will be forthcoming. as to what is working and what is not. So you have to find a time when you feel like everybody's chill, everybody's, kind of relaxed and is just letting the words flow. And then you start talking about that. But it has to be in a very comfortable environment, for both of you. So that's very, very important. If you're trying to make your marriage a happily ever after, not just ever after, but happily ever after. One of the other things that is normal in marriage is that we all grow. And when I'm saying growing, I'm not talking about aging or the years, but in wisdom, in our thought process, in the way we behave or react to certain situations. There are some of us that when we were younger, we would just quickly be very angry and maybe even get physical, right? And as you get older, you start to realize, no, you need to chill. You need to control your emotions. You need to have a handle on your emotions, and flying off the handle and, being all, rigid in a situation is actually a sign of weakness, not a sign of strength. Strength is when you're actually able to hold back yourself from punching somebody. That is strength. So as we grow, we want to make sure that we're growing together in the same direction, not apart. It is very easy to grow apart because somebody said, and I think I read it somewhere, and somebody said that to me as well, that every 7 years we're a different person from the 7 years prior. So every 7 years we have evolved in some way in our character as a human being. So in your marriage, if you are evolving together in the same direction, that is good. However, things happen to different people at different times. So there may be situations that you go through maybe with your own family, not your husband, but I'm talking about your mother and your father, your siblings, that may change you in a certain way and may affect your husband or your wife in a different way. So those kinds of things in life will happen that will change you. You have to change in the same direction. Not saying you have to be twins and agree all the time. But for instance, maybe when you first got married, you weren't going to church. You were both atheists. One of you becomes a Christian or becomes a Muslim or just gets into some religion and the other one doesn't. That will almost certainly bring some difficult situations into your marriage. But if you both decide to get into whatever that belief system is together, that is growing in the same direction. And it is very important that you both do that, because if you don't, you're slowly putting a wedge between yourselves, very slowly. And you don't want to do that. You know what I mean? You don't want to do that. So that's another thing that you have to think about. You have to, if you want the happily ever after, you have to grow together in the same direction. The other thing is, some people, I don't want to say they're stuck in their ways, but they're stuck in their ways, okay? Maybe you've been married for 10 years and one spouse is changing and the other one is not. The other one is evolving, the other one is not. And so the one who is not changing will tell you, well, this is how you this is how I was and you married me this way, so, so what? And then the other one's like, but as we get older, we evolve and we develop and we grow. Because if one is stagnant and the other one is growing, the gulf between you guys is going to be huge, and eventually it'll lead to a divorce. If it doesn't, it's going to lead to a not happily ever after, where you're both committed not to be divorced, but you're not happy. Both people have dug their heels in because divorce is an ugly word to them, or divorce is shameful. And so they would rather sit in the dysfunctional, unhappy marriage for the rest of their lives than be divorced. And to each his own, I can't say one is right or the other, but if we're talking about is happily ever after possible, these are the things that you have to think about and understand if you're going to strive for that. in my opinion, there is nothing wrong with divorce. When you're courting, each person is presenting themselves as the best version of themselves. So you may not know that person truly before you get married. You just may not know. Aside from the fact that people change, even if they don't, you may not know their true selves before you get married. And usually when people get comfortable, it's when their true character comes out. And sometimes when it comes out, it's not appetizing at all. Okay. So to me, divorce, if you find out that, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be, or this is not what I intended it to be, or this is not what I expected it to be, because either my vision was clouded or whatever, it's okay to divorce. You just want to make sure, for me, if children are involved, then you're going to have to do everything in your power, and even when you decide that it is over, counseling for both of you. And if you have children, for the children, is very, very important, because your heart will move on, but not 100% if you haven't resolved certain things with you. So troubles will come into your life and your marriage. That's what's normal. How you resolve them is what determines if you're going to be mostly happily ever after. Let's put it that way. So mostly happily ever after. Yes, that is possible. But happily ever after 100,000% with no regression or bad things or disagreements or arguments is not possible. If it seems like that in your marriage, somebody's faking it. Just saying. One last thing is that people talk about, if you're trying to get divorced because you think there's something better out there for you, you may feel like you've seen it. Remember that this one that you're in that you think is not that wonderful anymore, at one point seemed wonderful to you. And that's why you got into it. Okay, so you have to remember that. And my pastor said, the grass is greener where you water it. People, think about, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. The grass is greener on the other side. That's because somebody's tending to it. Somebody's managing it. Somebody's fertilizing, watering it, tilling the soil, reseeding, doing all those wonderful things. So if you want your marriage to look like that nice green grass on that side, that's what you have to do on your side for your marriage. It takes work. You can't slack off. It takes work. So if you want that happily ever after, be prepared to do the work, that will make it an almost happily ever after. Okay. So with that being said, remember, in order for your marriage to thrive, you must respect yourself. You must respect your spouse. You must be kind to yourself and be kind to your spouse. Until next time, take care.